Let's talk about a BCD switch, or binary coded decimal. We're going to use a thumb wheel switch to put some binary numbers into the Arduino. Now, basically it's just 4 switches tied to 4 different inputs into the Arduino. Each input is tied to ground with a 10K resistor, just to bring it low when there's no voltage on the switches here. So over here is our chart here. We have binary numbers over here and our decimal numbers over here. So if we want to say we want to put a decimal 5 into the Arduino here, we turn on switch 1 and switch 3 here, which will be a 0, 1, 0, 1, binary 5 or decimal 5 here. If you wanted to put a 9 into the Arduino here, we would turn on switch 1 and switch 4 over here, which would be a 1, 0, 0, 1, which would be a binary 9 or a decimal 9. Now, you can see that if all these switches were closed, it would add up to 15. And a lot of times you just want to go from 0 to 9, say in a clock circuit or even a calculator. So they use this Atkin code here, and they just weight this last switch differently. Instead of being an 8, it's just a 2. So now, up until 4, these are all identical. But when we get to 5, instead of being a 4 and a 1, they take a 2, 0, 1, 1 here, which would be a 2 and a 2 and a 1, and to make your 5 here. Now, the reason they do that, these are just mirror images of the top up here. So this 4 is a mirror image of 5 here. So this is 0, this is a 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1. So 6 is the same thing as a mirror image of 3. 7 is a mirror image of 2. 8 is a mirror image of 1 here. So this 0 here, and you have a 1 up here, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0. And of course 9 is all 1s and 0s, all 0s. But that's this Atkin code. We're using the binary decimal code, BCD code, binary coded decimal. And so over here we have our Arduino, and we have our thumb wheel switch, and we can put in these numbers 1 through 9, and then back to 0 again. Now, on the code here for the Arduino, these are our switches here. Now I've labeled them 1, 2, 4, and 8. That's the way they're weighted. But you could call them 1, 2, 3, and 4 if you want. So if you wanted a digital 1 into the computer, we would just digital read. I have inputs 4, 5, 6, and 7 on the computer, and so if 1 is high, we put a 1 into the into switch 1 here. If 2 is high, we make switch 2 high. If 3 is high, we just make that switch a 4. And if the last switch is on, we make that an 8. So then all we have to do is add up those numbers here. To find our decimal, we just add up what's in these switches here. So in other words, if we wanted a 3, we would have this would be a 1 and a 2, which would make a 3. If you wanted a 5, you would turn on this switch here and this one here, which would be a 1, and a 4, which would add up to 5 on here. So that's just a little simple code for putting the thumb wheel switch into the Arduino there. I'll link that into the description. Now, on a practical application here, this was there was a grain elevator that had a turret on top that would turn to load different silos, grain silos. So up there you wanted it to be pretty foolproof. So this was a metal plate that was 3/8 of an inch thick and about 24 inches across, tied to the shaft to turn this turret on top of the grain elevator. Now, what we did was just drilled holes in here with these binary numbers in mind here. So this was a 1 in this position, this was a 2, a 3, a 4. For 5, we would and we had limit switches in here that would drop into these holes as this turned around. So say if you wanted a 2 or a 3 position, then as this turned around, it would drop into 2 and a 1, which would make our 3 here. So if you wanted it in position 7, you had 3 holes drilled over here, which would be a 4, 2, and a 1. So it's just a binary pattern on here. And as this turned around, it would drop into these holes, and we'd know what position it was, or you could tell it where to go, and it would know how to get there. There was no 8 on there. We just had ended up with just 3 limit switches, and we were able to direct it to go to 7 different silos. So that was just kind of a practical application of a binary coded decimal that with just 3 wires and a common, we ran that down to a computer, and we were able to control the turret that way. So that's binary coded decimal. Thank you.